I think you look at most objective people will say 60 Minutes has a sterling reputation for investigative journalism. Are they wrong?
But that's not investigative journalism if you change someone's answers. If you ask her a question and she comes with a rambling answer that doesn't make sense, and you edit that out and insert another answer to a different question that seems more cogent.
Joe, then you're walking down, you're walking down a dangerous path. Suing media has the impact of intimidating.
You can actually feel the moment everything starts to fall apart. Joe Rogan leans in to dig deeper. Bernie Sanders comes in swinging, and Kamala turns out to be the unexpected trigger that blows the whole conversation wide open. This isn't yelling for clicks or staged drama. It's two worlds crashing together in real time, with tension so thick you could slice it. And when the masks finally slip, the talk reveals way more than either of them probably intended.
I haven't read the book, but it's Kamala's book, where she says she didn't choose Pete Buttigieg because of his sexual orientation.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about this. People can correct in the comments, please. But I believe that's illegal. Like, if you didn't hire someone because they had a certain sexual orientation, I believe that's illegal.
Well, you're allowed to choose who you think is going to work the best.
But
if you
not
want someone
because of... And you'd say something else, like, oh, they're not qualified. You cannot, I believe, well, someone can tell us if I'm wrong.
Before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. What seemed like just another chill Joe Rogan chat where ideas float around nicely and no one gets uneasy, turned out to be completely different when Bernie Sanders sat down across from Rogan.
I have an idea. I want you to hear me here. Any one of you who wants to kick in a mere $270 million to a presidential candidate, you know what? Hey, you can end up having the most important position in government. Only $270 million. But that's not just Musk helping to elect Trump. One of the reasons, in my view, that Kamala Harris lost this election is she had too many billionaires telling her not to speak up for the work.
Because the moment Kamala Harris, media bias, money, and politics came into the mix, everything changed. The tone shifted in a way Bernie clearly didn't expect. What happened wasn't a shouting match or a viral clip made for clicks. It was a slow, unstoppable collision of assumptions.
You might have needed to cancel on us to get Kamala Harris on.
I was not going to do that. I would have had to. I knew you guys flew from England, and I wasn't going to cancel on you because she had an opportunity to come in. You could look at this and you could say, "Oh, you're being a diva," but she had an opportunity to come here when she was in Texas, and I literally gave them an open invitation. I said, "Anytime." I said, "If she's done at 10 o'clock, we'll come back here at 10 o'clock." I go, "I'll do it at 9 in the morning. I'll do it at 10 p.m. I'll do it."
Rogan kept pushing with facts and calling out inconsistencies while Sanders struggled to hold on to the story he usually controls on friendly platforms. Bernie walked into the studio with decades of political confidence and a reputation for being treated gently by most media that generally share his perspective.
I understand that there are millions of Americans who disagree with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris on the terrible war in Gaza. I am one of them. While Israel had a right to defend itself against the horrific Hamas terrorist attack of October 7th, which killed 1,200 innocent people and took 250 hostages, it did not have the right to wage an all-out war against the entire Palestinian people. It did not have the right to kill 42,000 Palestinians.
This likely led Bernie to expect another familiar conversation, criticizing billionaires, Donald Trump, and corporate power without real pushback. But Joe Rogan doesn't play by the usual rules. Instead of just nodding along, he challenged Sanders in a way that immediately threw off that rhythm, especially when the talk turned to Elon Musk and campaign donations. Sanders brought up Musk's reported support for Trump, framing it as a dangerous example of the rich having too much influence over democracy, a line he's repeated countless times on cable news and college campuses. Rogan let him finish, then calmly dropped a piece of context that flipped the whole dynamic. Kamala Harris's campaign raised an enormous amount of money in a very short time. Instead of addressing the comparison head-on, Rogan widened the discussion and steered it back toward Republican donors.
Well, she also has been saying something really crazy. She's been saying that this is the closest race of the 21st century and that it wasn't a mandate. That's just not true.
It's not true.
Gore and Bush was
Yeah.
much closer.
Yes.
I think that was a 0.5%.
Yes. I don't know why she keeps saying this.
It's just a lie. And then also she's leaving out the fact that she lost every swing state, every single one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
I know, it's
he won
crazy.
The pivot was subtle but clear, showing just how uneasy the conversation became once the same scrutiny hit figures Sanders usually defends. Rogan didn't accuse, mock, or interrupt aggressively, but he also didn't let the inconsistency slide. That's exactly why the exchange felt so tense. This is where the Joe Rogan podcast often differs from typical political interviews. It doesn't rely on gotcha questions or dramatic confrontations. Instead, it uses time and persistence to test ideas until their weak points show. Sanders is used to short segments and predictable talking points, but Rogan's format removes that safety net. The argument Sanders made is familiar in progressive circles, and he delivered it with urgency, warning that such legal actions could chill the media. Rogan responded by slowing things down and making a key distinction Sanders seemed unwilling or unable to fully see. There's a real difference between investigative journalism that challenges powerful figures and deceptive editing that twists how the public sees a candidate.
Yes, her views are not mine, but I do consider her progressive.
Big picture, do you still consider Vice President Kamala Harris to be progressive, Senator?
I do. Look, she is not where I am. But I think, for example, when she talks about making the child tax credit permanent, and we did that in the American Rescue Plan, we lowered childhood poverty by 40%. Kristen, we should not have, as the richest country on earth, one of the highest rates of childhood poverty in the world. When she talks about building 3 million units of affordable housing, that's a big deal because we have a major housing.
Rogan's point wasn't that the media should be silenced or punished for asking tough questions. It was that deliberately reshaping someone's words to make them seem more capable or more coherent crosses a line from reporting into campaigning. Sanders defended legacy outlets like 60 Minutes by pointing to their long history and reputation, arguing that they've earned public trust through decades of investigative work. Rogan pushed back, stressing that reputation alone doesn't excuse questionable behavior, especially when national elections and public trust are at stake. The tension didn't rise because either man raised his voice, but because the conversation revealed a deeper divide about accountability. There was a clear attempt to reframe the issue as shared vulnerability instead of specific actions, but Rogan didn't accept that framing. He calmly repeated that criticizing deceptive practices is not an attack on free speech, and that accountability does not automatically mean censorship.
And they want to control a lot of things, I'm sure, according to the Brett Breyer interview on Fox. People were waving them off. That's a distraction. People in the room, my whole goal with her and with him is just talk. Just have a conversation like a human being. You find out things about people. You get a sense of them, at least, a real sense. That was it. I don't give a fuck what we talk about. I really don't. I just want to talk to you. Who the fuck are you?
Do you think they think that you're on his side and they're more wary?
He pointed out that journalism loses credibility when it sacrifices objectivity to protect a narrative, and calling that out is necessary if the public is going to trust the media at all. Sanders seemed increasingly uncertain, sometimes admitting he didn't have all the details, yet still insisting his broader concern justified his stance. That only made the gap between Rogan's specifics and Sanders' generalizations more obvious. The talk then shifted to other media lawsuits and public statements, with Sanders referencing cases vaguely and struggling to remember exact details, which weakened his argument further. By this point, it was clear that Sanders' strong opposition to Donald Trump was shaping his responses more than any consistent standard for media ethics. Rogan, refusing to see everything as pro or anti-Trump, exposed that bias. He wasn't defending Trump personally, he was defending the principle that truth matters, no matter who it benefits. That stance resonated precisely because it didn't fit neatly into any partisan box.
Thirds of whom were children, women, and the elderly, or injure over 100,000 people in Gaza. It did not have the right to destroy Gaza's infrastructure, housing, and healthcare system. It did not have the right to bomb every one of Gaza's 12 universities. It did not have the right to block humanitarian aid, causing massive malnutrition in children. And in fact,
to show the bigger issue, Rogan pointed to recent high-profile media mistakes, including cases where outlets rushed a story without checking basic facts, only to walk it back later in public corrections. These weren't framed as one-off errors, but as signs of a media culture driven more by ideology than verification, where speed and outrage often matter more than accuracy. The conversation also highlighted how some networks become so focused on tying Trump to foreign figures or controversies that they miss simpler explanations, spreading misinformation that hurts their own credibility. Rogan stressed that these kinds of mistakes are preventable with basic journalistic discipline. That inconsistency didn't go unnoticed, and it became one of the key undercurrents of the entire exchange. The talk then widened to other political figures and moments that showed what Rogan called performative politics, where symbolism and posturing replace real substance in leadership.
This is crazy talk.
Yeah. It's wild. It is so
But she's
wild.
probably hammered.
And
She's probably up there drinking wine. Fucking kick his ass next time. Fuck him.
It's so brutal. And I think she took credit for the no tax on tips things in the book as well.
That's hilarious because that was clearly his.
Clearly.
He said it first and they
Clearly.
copied it.
It's amazing.
Did she really say that in the book?
I haven't read it, but I have heard from someone who did read it that she did. So people
She
can
had
correct us in
to
the
address
comments.
not coming on here in the book too, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, that was interesting.
These tangents highlight the main point. Modern political talk often values controlling the narrative over honest discussion, leaving voters frustrated and cynical. What made this episode so compelling wasn't that Rogan won or Sanders lost, but that it stripped away the comfort of rehearsed talking points and showed how fragile some arguments can be. This exchange proved that convictions can stumble when faced with inconsistencies that friendly platforms rarely challenge. Rogan stayed consistent throughout, focusing on clarity, fairness, and refusing to give automatic credibility based on reputation or politics. The episode became a clear example of why long, unscripted conversations are so revealing, especially in a world full of sound bites and viral outrage clips. When there's nowhere to hide behind time limits or talking points, ideas either hold up or they don't. And that process can be uncomfortable for anyone who isn't ready to defend their assumptions under sustained scrutiny.
And that is why I am doing everything I can to block U.S. military aid and offensive weapons sales to the right-wing extremist Netanyahu government in Israel. And I know that many of you share those feelings. And some of you are saying, how can I vote for Kamala Harris if she is supporting this terrible war? And that is a very fair question. And let me give you my best answer. And that is that even on this issue, Donald Trump and his right-wing friends.
As the conversation wrapped up, the bigger picture became clear. This wasn't just about Bernie Sanders, Joe Rogan, or Kamala Harris. It was about how political narratives are built, defended, and challenged in today's media. It raised tough questions about who gets held accountable, who gets a pass, and why those standards often change depending on who's speaking. For viewers and listeners, the episode was a reminder that skepticism should be applied fairly, not selectively, and that defending the truth sometimes means criticizing people on your own side. It also showed why platforms that allow real disagreement instead of scripted consensus stay so influential, even when they upset or frustrate established figures. In the end, the clash leaves audiences with more questions than answers, which is exactly why the conversation keeps sparking debate long after the microphones went silent. If this exchange proved anything, it's that the public still craves honest, unfiltered discussion, even if traditional media seems disconnected from it.
She's up. She wants to, drink a Red Bull, fucking party on.
Yeah, but I think this idea that you're being a diva is silly because you're offering her the opportunity to do exactly what the other candidate did, right?
Well, she actually reached out when she found out that he was coming on. So their camp reached out to me. So I said, great, I would love to talk to her. But it was very difficult to tie it down, and they wanted to travel. And see, the thing is, you can't, if I go somewhere, then there's going to be other people in the room.
As long as figures like Rogan keep inviting uncomfortable conversations and refusing easy answers, moments like this will continue exposing the fault lines in modern political discourse. They remind viewers that truth is rarely as simple or convenient as we're often told. Bernie Sanders, despite his authenticity and consistency on economic issues, seemed constrained by the very system he criticizes. Defending institutions that share his political leanings pushed him into positions that conflicted with his broader message about accountability and fairness. When the same skepticism he applies to billionaires and corporations was turned toward media organizations, his answers became less certain and more defensive, sharply contrasting with his usual confidence. That didn't make him dishonest, just human. And in today's political climate, vulnerability without a neat resolution often reads as weakness. Rogan, on the other hand, benefits from a role that's hard to define. He's neither a traditional journalist nor a partisan commentator, allowing him to ask questions without being dismissed as an ideological opponent. This ambiguity frustrates political figures who rely on predictable attacks. Their attempts fail because Rogan keeps steering the conversation back to principles, not personalities.
Do you think that Kamala Harris is the best person to run against Donald Trump right now?
Well, she is the person, and
that won't change probably, huh?
she'll be the Democratic candidate. She's very smart. You got to give credit to somebody, a black woman, to move up the ladder. That ain't easy stuff. There's a lot of resistance to that. And she's persistent. She's strong. I think she'll be a good candidate. I was interested that Trump apparently backed out of a debate with her on ABC. She's tough.
She's tough.
Bringing Kamala Harris into the discussion added another layer of tension, forcing a comparison Sanders seemed hesitant to fully confront, especially around campaign financing and media coverage. Harris represents a different side of the political spectrum, mixing establishment support with progressive messaging, and applying the same scrutiny to her campaign as to her opponents revealed some uncomfortable similarities. That comparison undercut the moral clarity Sanders often leans on, showing that the problems he criticizes are more systemic than partisan. The episode also highlighted just how deeply entrenched narrative protection is in modern media, where correcting mistakes often feels like a concession instead of a duty. As the talk broadened, it became clear this wasn't just a passing disagreement. It reflected a deeper gap between institutional trust and public skepticism. Sanders represents politicians who believe change can happen within the system, while Rogan's audience increasingly sees that system as compromised by incentives that favor access and influence.
Everybody forever was like, Kamala Harris is the worst vice president. She's the least popular vice president of all time. And then in a moment in time, all of a sudden she's our solution. She's our hero. Everybody's with her. All these social media posts about her. Try Googling a negative story on her. You won't find one.
So,
ta-da!
Okay, you've got me started, Officer Harris.
That gap is what made their exchange feel so unresolved. They were coming from completely different assumptions about where legitimacy comes from. The lasting impact of the episode comes from its refusal to deliver a tidy conclusion. Neither man dramatically conceded ground nor offered a definitive closing point. Instead, the conversation ended with tension left hanging, leaving listeners to wrestle with the contradictions rather than being guided to a prepackaged takeaway. In an era of algorithm-driven certainty, that kind of ambiguity is rare, and it's exactly what keeps people talking long after the episode ends. Ultimately, the clash between Joe Rogan and Bernie Sanders wasn't about winning or losing. It was about exposing the tension between ideals and execution, between rhetoric and reality. It showed how easily consistency can crack when accountability is inconvenient, and how powerful simple questions are when asked without loyalty or apology. As long as political figures rely on protected narratives and safe platforms, moments like this will remain rare, uncomfortable, and endlessly compelling, reminding everyone watching that real dialogue isn't always comfortable, but it often uncovers the truth beneath it.